Today we're gonna talk about decentralized autonomous organizations, and for me this is personally like one of the most interesting things we can discuss in the space, in blockchain and cryptocurrency related topics. And it's not to raise your expectations up, but it's just to like consider that this thing like DAOs can be literally a game changer in the way we behave in our society. So this is literally where technology can have a huge impact on how humans interact between each other and how they collaborate. So let's get right to it. So what is a DAO? So a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, and we can understand it breaking it up word by word. So I mean, it's an organization because it's kind of a social group, no, in which people work together towards a common goal, no. So it's an organization because it's something that helps to collaboration between people, no. And is decentralized because he lives on public blockchains. So in order to be taken down, then the underlying protocol in which the DAO lives, it needs to disappear, which means, as we saw, like destroying all the nodes that replicate the ledger, no? So it's kind of difficult, and this is the power of decentralization, as we saw. And it's autonomous. And it's autonomous because a DAO in reality doesn't depend on anything except itself. Because rules are coded, no, in the smart contract, and the smart contract makes sure that the DAO does whatever it is programmed to do, no? So no matter what happens, no matter who tries to change something, the DAO lives in a smart contract, and if the smart contract is programmed to do something, then it's gonna do it no matter what. So this is why it's autonomous, no? And so at the end, DAOs are organizations that run on peer-to-peer networks, no, like blockchain based, like Ethereum, no, can be also Bitcoin, but it's a little bit more difficult. And DAOs allow people to make decisions about shared resources, no? For example, money or I don't know, intellectual property, whatever. But with an interesting element, because all this happens without an hierarchy. So there is not a top-down organization like a pyramidal structure in which there are different levels of the hierarchy, and the guy who is at the top he manages all the guys under, no? But in a DAO, what happens is that there is a direct, transparent, and accessible collaboration in a non-hierarchical way. So more than having the pyramid like we see here, a DAO is something more like this, no? Is as we saw at the end, is more peer-to-peer, is more decentralized, and the structure is a little bit more flexible, no, in a way. And a DAO enforces, no, a social contract between its participants, because at the end people gather together to achieve a common goal or to manage some resources together, and this is the social contract between them, no, is the reason why they are there. And the way that this social contract between participants is achieved is through smart contracts, no? Which is what we saw at the end. Smart contract, it enforces no, the interaction on the blockchain. So like it has its rules, it gets coded, it cannot be changed, and in the case of the DAO, it enforces the interaction of participants, no, according to the rules of the DAO, so according to what the participants created the DAO for, no, in a way. And at the end, if the smart contract prevents you from doing something, then you simply cannot do it, no? Is what is written in the smart contract gets done. If not, like it's impossible to force it. And so every interaction with the DAO, no, is lives, but according to the rules of the DAO, because it's enforced by the smart contract. So A DAO, you can think it of multiple smart contracts, a bunch of smart contracts that are together to let participants interact and collaborate between them through the blockchain, no? So making proposals, voting, and all these kind of things, all on the blockchain, no? On chain. So the DAO is decentralized and autonomous, no? And money that is in the DAO smart contract cannot be transferred, except if the smart contract code say that it can be transferred, or according to the rules, no? That the smart contract say. Like nobody has directly the access to the DAO's money. Nobody is the CEO and can move the money somewhere around, or has more decision than others about what to do with the money or with the votes and whatever. So no matter what it happens, no matter which participants are in the DAO, like you need to kind of to ask to the code of the DAO in order to do stuff, no? Because if it's coded in a smart contract, it gets done. If not, no. So if the DAO has been programmed to respect some processes, requirements in order to move money, then until those requirements are not fulfilled and the smart contract is happy, the money will never move. And as Vitalik Buterin once said, Vitalik Buterin is the founder of Ethereum, so he's incredibly smart guy and very famous in the space of blockchain. So a DAO is an entity that lives on the internet and exists autonomously, no? But it also heavily relies on hiring individuals to perform tasks that the automation itself cannot do. It's like, okay, the DAO lives on the internet, is autonomous, whatever, but still it requires humans at the end to perform tasks or make decisions, because a DAO is just the tool, no, that allow this collaboration between humans. And this happens because the DAO at the end allow, as we say, participants to gather together and interact according to some set of rules, no? But it's up to the participants to, for example, make proposals, vote them, manage the organization, decide what to do. At the end, the DAO just enforce the social contract between these participants, not just say the rules on how this collaboration is done. But it doesn't, no, the DAO itself make proposal or vote them and whatever. So at the end, as humans, we always organize in kind of hierarchical structures, because it's easier to coordinate, no? Think about in government, in when you go to in militaries, no, in the army, like it's easy when there is a centralized structure to take fast decision and be efficient, no, in the way you handle things. Like think in the military, like you really need a captain to say, okay, let's go there, or let's go over there or not, and or a captain in a boat, like this hierarchical structure are very useful for this, because if not, it would be a chaos. Everybody has an opinion, and maybe the only way to make a bad decision is simply not doing it. So if everybody has its own voice, then it's hard, no, to perform efficient decisions. So this is at the end the reason we are all used to this hierarchical structure. But there are some problems, no? For example, there are some single point of failure. Let's say, I don't know, the captain is sick that day, then who tells you what to do, no? How do you get the orders? How do you know what to do? And still, no, the fact that he relies on these key people, no, these central people, then it could be affected by the selfishness of an individual, and where the individual maybe can take over the organization, no, and maybe do something for its own self-interest more than the community itself. And also information bottlenecks, because at the end, if there is just one guy that takes the decision, then if two person need to rely to this guy and give information to this guy to perform some decision, like this kind of structure, hierarchical, doesn't allow so much maybe to let the two people talk directly between them, no? And maybe one need to declare the information to the captain, and then the captain need to tell to another person what to do. But no, it kind of cuts off some flow of information, no? So this is a problem, no, of hierarchical structures. And through the DAO, you actually can create decentralized society, and this is very cool. Like it's an amazing concept at the end, because it's borderless societies, and it can literally reshape the way we think societies, and the way we collaborate between us, and also the role of the government, no, in a certain way. And this it's possible because the DAOs they live on a layer of decentralized money. It's like when we created like as humans Bitcoin or decentralized money, we succeeded in creating something that cannot be controlled by any organization. And with this layer of trust, no, in reality, this layer of trust that is created by the fact that nobody needs to trust each other to interact between them. This layer, this digital decentralized money, well, it allowed to create a layer of trust where people can rely on in order to create something out of it. It's like, okay, now we have decentralized the money, it works, amazing. Now let's begin to build the societies on top of it. No, let's begin to create some abstraction over this digital money concept. And so a DAO at the end it's kind of an upper layer, no, of technology that lives on already existing blockchain. And as you may guess, it can take many years to see a DAO that we see it in our society, just because like it's right now we see all these cryptocurrencies, and it already begins to feel comfortable, no, sometimes dealing with them and understanding what they are, how to use it, and these kind of things. But like 12 years ago, like it wasn't so, like when Bitcoin was born, like nobody knew about it, and it took time, just to show that decentralized money is actually possible. And now we can say that Bitcoin has been proved itself resilient enough to different attacks, to chain splits, to organization taking over it, and so it's gonna take a huge amount of time still to create societies on top of it, which is even more complex than just creating money, no? So right now, the DAOs that are out there are mostly kind of a skeleton. You can think of it, no? They provide you some tools to create your own DAO, and other interesting things, no, of governance. And in general, you cannot expect a DAO at this moment to be a complete product, So it's gonna take time. And we can see some example just to understand what are we talking about. And one interesting example for me is DAO Stack, which is basically an open source software that is designed to support a global network of collaboration based communities. No, so what does it mean? It means they provide you the tool to create your own DAO, no, and provide all the technology which makes it for you very easy, like also user experience wise, to create your own decentralized society. And this is amazing, because at the end it's kind of the seed from which a lot of cool collectives and initiatives they can take place, no? And at the end, DAOs are solving both a technological and social challenge, because the more the society, or the collective grows, well, the more people talk between each others, no? The more there is interaction between participants, and okay, you need to let them vote and making proposals, okay, of course, because we say let's make this environment where everybody can propose and vote and stuff like this. But also not only you need to do that, but also you need to manage the attentions of the people that are in the collective in a way, because how can you prevent, for example, that I don't know, 10,000 people that are in a society, if everybody say their own opinion or make their own proposal, it's not easy to expect that all the other people are gonna see all the proposal that everybody does, because some of them are gonna be like useless, some of them are gonna be extremely interesting, but still, like, you will need to read all of them to understand which one are worth to vote on, no? So this is a big challenge, because you need to manage also the attention of the people, no? The collective attention, and in order not to have just noise of proposals. This is a very big challenge, and it's also what DAO Stack is aiming to solve. And because at the end, like, in order for DAOs to scale, like, the vote of the singular person needs to be transformed into community aligned decision, no? Like the vote that everybody does at the end needs to make sense in the concept of the whole community. And how DAO Stack solve this? Well, this is the sentence that said an architect of DAO Stack, and say there is a natural tension between scalability, the number of decisions that a collective can make in a period of time, and resilience and the incorruptibility of those decisions. Like, all these elements are kind of struggling between each other, and we resolve the tension with a new collective decision-making process called holographic consensus, where small groups can make decisions on behalf of the larger majority in such a way that guarantees perfect alignment between the two. So this is very cool, and we're gonna see more in details what it means, but the main concept is that a small collective, like DAO Stack kind of figured out a way in which a small collective can take decision for the bigger collective, and kind of focusing the attention of the whole when it's needed, and not to let every small collective propose things and then everybody needs to vote on those, and stifling the agility, in which an organization can take decision. So he kind of found out a way not to prevent small groups of people to make proposals, and that can be accepted by the majority, and also avoiding the noise of everybody saying its opinion, and the inability of needing to asking everybody to vote on whatever stupid thing that somebody came up with, So the way it does it is basically DAO Stack has its own cryptocurrency token, the Gen token, and Gen is used to filter the attentions of the user on the proposals that are made. No, so how does it do it? Well, the way it does it is that first of all, like, one thing we need to understand is that the Gen token cannot buy voting power. Okay, so it's not a token that allows you to vote. So it doesn't give you voting privileges. Is nothing of this. But you can use Gen token to bet for a proposal, or against it. What does it mean? Well, when we discussed the proof of stake, we saw how basically you can invest your cryptocurrencies, your tokens, putting them at the center of the table, and if you behave good, if you are right, then you get the money that you have put on the center of the table more an interest, or a reward for your job. Which job? Well, to assume a risk, putting your money at the center of the table and saying, I don't touch it, and judge my work if it has been done good or bad. And if it has been done good, you get rewarded. And if you perform badly, then it's washed away the money. So how can Gen allow you to bet for a proposal and at the same time filters the attention of the user on interesting proposals that are good for the community? Well, basically you stake Gen every time you bet if a proposal is gonna be approved or not. So you're not actually voting on the proposal. You're not voting I vote yes or I vote no. You are basically betting your cryptocurrency that a certain proposal will be voted by the majority and pass. But you are not voting in the moment you are making the bet. This is important because if you could vote with Gen, well, we can see what could happen, but in general, the thing that is important is that if you bet that a proposal is gonna pass, I think that you know what? I think that everybody in this building want to paint the building red, and if you see the proposal that somebody say, hey, let's paint this building red, and you think that everybody will approve this, or the majority of it will approve, then you would bet Gen on it, and you say, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna vote, but I really bet that this thing will be approved by the community, no? And of course, like if you're not right, you lose your bet, you lose your tokens, no? And you're just betting and you are not voting with the token. And this is important to understand because so this is the mechanism that influences whether or not users will see certain proposals or not. No, voters will see certain proposals or not. Why? Well, because if something deserve attention, then it's shown to a bigger audience of people, no? In order to let people to vote on it. But if something, for example, doesn't deserve attention, is just noise, maybe there is easier way to handle the same proposal, not saying yes or no in the same moment, but still you don't need to let everybody vote on a very small thing. Let's say there is somebody in very far, like we live in the same community in Barcelona, and I make the proposal that I want to have my building, the building I live in, red. Then makes sense that is the community in which I'm in that will vote for this, but like it shouldn't require the vote of everybody not involved in this, no? So this staking system, which at the end allows you to put at stake some Gen and risk it in order to get some rewards or not, it functions with a prediction market. And the way it functions with a prediction market is the following. Like in a prediction market, like the person who kind of try to forecast what is gonna happen are kind of incentivized to pick the decision that are most aligned with the DAO vision and moral and white paper, let's say, no? So like in this case, you create a way in which people will kind of be rewarded if they spot some proposals that are aligned with the DAO, and if for example there are a lot of people that bet that a proposal is gonna pass, then most probably this proposal it is aligned with the DAO vision, because if not, all these forecasters are basically taking high risk to lose all their money for trying to say, hey, I think this decision will pass, but most probably, if the decision is not aligned with the DAO, they are gonna lose all the money that they have put. So if somebody wants to bet on a proposal and say, hey, I think this is gonna pass, this is aligned with the community, then these proposals can be passed and approved much more quickly and with fewer votes than all the other proposals. Why? Well, because you kind of already filter it out through some people that are risking money on it, that this is a proposal that is most probably aligned with the whole community, no? With the whole DAO. And why that? Well, because somebody is risking money to bet that this thing is gonna pass. So if it's not gonna pass, they're gonna lose money. So with this, you already have a very good filters on the proposals that you think that are aligned with the DAO vision, no? So it's interesting like this, and because then you can take decision more easily, knowing that some proposals will be most probably approved by the whole community. You can let just few people vote on it instead of some decision that maybe are more, how do you say, more controversial, in which you will need maybe the whole community to vote on it. Just because, for example, a lot of people think it will be approved and a lot of people think it won't. So it's not easy to decide without asking all the community, no, what they think. And this is the mechanism that DAO Stack calls holographic consensus, which I think is a very cool name. Because holographic, no, is kind of makes reference to the fact that at the end, a part of the whole, no, a group of voters can effectively represent all the voters, no, and so as we saw that if there is a lot of people that bet on that a proposal will pass, we assume that this proposal is most probably aligned with the vision of the DAO, and so we can let less people vote on it, have a quorum that is smaller, and be sure that these people represent the whole community, even if we didn't ask the whole community, no? And this is extremely cool because it allows to make fast decision and maintaining alignment between the community members. Like, is not to be taken for granted. Like, this is extremely interesting mechanism. And talking again about why the Genesis, the Gen token is not used to vote, is because monetary wealth should be separated from voting right. Because if this weren't the case, and the token, for example, imagine is a cryptocurrency, so it can be bought, sold, and whatever, then it's risky because you could end up with a plutocracy where there are some wealthy people that have a lot of Gen tokens and they can decide whatever they want of all the majority just because they are more rich. So it's a tricky society, no, to live in. So this is the reason, like, the Gen token is not used to vote, but is used just to bet. But still, just betting, it makes sense, no? Because as we saw, it allows to have a faster decision. And voting instead is done through a reputation system. So reputation can't be sold, no, or exchanged. And the more reputation you have, the more you can vote, basically, no, or the more is your voting power. And this the reputation will depend, of course, on the way you want to implement your DAO, no? The way you imagine reputation and the way you want to implement it in your organization. And this is a dashboard on what you would see when you go into DAO Stack, and this is how you would actually create your own DAO, no? So you can, as you see here, like this is a DAO that has been created, and it has a lot of proposals, and like there are some requests, and people vote on it, and people bet later. So it's cool. Like you can check it out. It's interesting. It's basically a platform that is a DAO launcher, no? Like you can create DAOs all the time. Like it's cool. And the fact we talked about Genesis with DAO Stack, it kind of introduced a new concept that is also kind of cool, that is prediction markets. And we saw it in a bit, but we are gonna show it in an example that is even more clear. So prediction markets in general are a very useful mechanism to spot market inefficiency. Why this? Well, because if somebody knows something, they are rewarded for their knowledge. And so if you reward the people who know something that the other don't, you kind of make sure that the market or the organization or whatever gets adjusted quickly, no, to information flows. And now we're gonna see why this is important. An example to understand why it's interesting prediction market is this project that is called solidified.io, and basically it started as a smart contract auditing platform. So people would go there to audit smart contracts, and if they found a bug, a vulnerability, then they say, hey, I found this bug or whatever, and then they get rewarded, no, for it, because at the end they helped to make the contract more secure. And so it started like programmers begin to find weaknesses and bugs, in the smart contracts, and they get rewarded, for this knowledge at the end. And Solidified is working now with a prediction market. So it allows people to bet if a code is secure or not. Like, it's amazing because you basically can smell the code and you say, okay, you know what? I think this smart contract is not secure at all. I would bet something that somebody's gonna find a bug, that somebody's gonna hack it or whatever. I'm gonna bet, and I'm gonna be sure that I take money if it happens. And so if the contract gets hacked, if a bug is discovered and stuff like this, then you gain money, no? Because you bet that something was weird, was inside the smart contract and it didn't feel secure. And if you think the smart contract is secure, well, you can also bet, no, that is secure. So it's depending on the contract and on other things, like if there are no bugs found and no vulnerability, then you would actually gain money, And this at the end is very interesting, because what it allows you to do is like when you let people bet on smart contract security, you already have a feeling on how safe is that piece of code, even without looking at it. And this is because if everybody bets that the contract has a bug, then most probably it has it. Nobody wants to bet something that they are sure to lose. So, and also it gives you a sense when things change, because let's say a lot of people think that the contract is safe, so they bet that the contract is secure, and then the next day, a lot of those people, they change their bet and say, whoa, this no, I changed my opinion, this has a bug, or this is will be hacked or whatever. Well, something changed, no? Somebody knew something and you don't, so why everybody changed the opinion on why the code is secure or not, why they are placing their bets against it instead of in favor of it. Did somebody discover something? And then this allows you also to inform fast on things that happens, and it incentivizes to make research about it and stuff like this. So it's really interesting. And now we can talk about another DAO. Prediction market is a concept that in general is useful for DAOs. It doesn't mean that all the DAOs has it, but it's usually an essential piece for most of the DAOs. And this DAO is called the MOLOK DAO, and it's another example on what a DAO can do and how different it can be from the others. And this DAO specifically, the MOLOK DAO, is focused on using funds, money, to improve the Ethereum, wisely, understanding to who give money to improve the protocol, if there is needed some, research and development grant, and if some developers need to be hired for a specific thing, all these kind of things, no? And it kind of help to have a community that decide all together if that money should be given to somebody or not, no? For to improve the protocol. And how does it work? Well, so in general, when you have a company like real companies, like usually when you have a stock in a company, like you can vote with a lot of for a lot of things. No, you vote, okay, let's use this money there, or no, okay, let's hire these people. Like you have a saying, no, if you own, let's say, 10% of a company on the company policy. Well, in the case of MOLOK DAO, the only thing that your stock does is it allows you only to vote on issuing a new stock, or it allows you to destroy what you have, your stock, and you get access to the capital that was locked under the stock that you have. So it's like this. Okay, you get into the DAO, no? You work, or you put money in it, or whatever thing. And then is the only thing that you can do in the DAO is voting to issue a new stock, basically brand new stock, brand new participation. This is the only thing you can vote. You cannot vote on anything else. If you don't agree, then you can destroy your stock and get access to the money that was locked in it. He was like, okay, you don't like this? No worries, like there is the door. Here is the money. Like you don't need to agree with the DAO. You can just take your things and go. Like take your money, and if you don't want to make this decision with us, no. So it's interesting because it kind of incentivizes you to say, okay, you know what? Or I think that this money will be used wisely if this person comes in and develops this. And if this is the case, then I want to vote to issue a new stock in order to let this person come in. Or if I don't, I get away. Like there is no other decision making process, and like it's quite powerful for its simplicity at the end. And so your voting power cannot be taken away, like unless you get out and take your money. And and in order to acquire a stock in this DAO, well, you need to ask the existing stockholder, like you say, hey guys, I want to enter. So can somebody create a stock for me, no? So that represent my participation in this, and you usually like or give resources to this, no? Like money, or you make work for it, or you share whatever things, and then the DAO, no? If they agree, they create a stock for you, and MOLOK DAO at the end it aims at coordinating resources for issuing development grants, no, on top of Ethereum. So saying, okay, like we need to make this protocol update. Okay, who's gonna take care of it? This guy asked, I don't know, 1,000 liters. Maybe it's too much. Like I get out of it, and no, like this. And in MOLOK DAO, voting is only used to issue new stock. You cannot vote for anything else. Like the only voting power you have in MOLOK DAO is I agree that this new person comes in and to makes this job in it. This is the only thing you can do. If not, you go out. And so if you have a stake in the MOLOK DAO, you can decide to, okay, you know what, I don't want this person to go in. I destroy my stake, like, and I withdraw the money that corresponds to it, and I get out, like, do whatever you want. So every time there is a votation, like, you can decide to destroy your stocks and withdraw now the corresponding money. And this is amazing. It's really amazing. Of course, it can work maybe just for few niche, the things like this. This is to manage development grants, on top of Ethereum. But like it's interesting the mechanism because it really reduces the transaction cost to coordinate, and it also like value, no, if money is spent well or not, because if it's not spent good, then everybody's gonna leave. So if you want people to stay in your DAO, then money needs to be spent really good. So it is really effective resource management, no? And of course there is the trade-off, and the trade-off is flexibility, because at the end you have less flexibility, no? If you can just vote to issue new stocks or you get out, well, it's not so much flexible as a protocol. But I mean, in everything in life there are trade-offs, and in this case specific, like it makes sense, no? Because it's better to evaluate effective resource management over the flexibility of being able to vote whatever thing. At the end, you're just giving money to people to develop stuff, no? So only a current member of the MOLOK DAO can submit a proposal. So if you are an external, you need to convince somebody in the MOLOK to make a proposal for you. And proposals can be, for example, funding a new project with the DAO's money, or give away an amount of shares in exchange of some resources, and these kind of things. So basically, MOLOK DAO now, as we saw, let any member cash out the shares instead of spending money, no, on something somebody doesn't agree on. Like, okay, you know what? Get your shares and get out, instead of wasting your money on stuff that you don't like. For us, we think is good. So if you want, you stay with us, and if not, no problem. No, so as we say, every time there is a proposal, no, and you don't agree, you can liquidate all your shares or some of them and get the equivalent amount of Ethereum, no, and you lose the voting power. And it just basically forces member to just carefully consider work only tribute, no, like you really need to be efficient, because every time members are getting diluted, no. And so this is interesting, because at the end is kind of, no, as you say, it's different from DAO stack, no. Also it's just for a specific purpose, but it's interesting that at the end you can see there are the same difficulties, no. Also here, like we saw, that this is a mechanism that allows for a faster decision making, but it's also decentralized, and but it has been achieved in a completely different way than DAO stack. So but still here, like, he tried to align the incentive of the single or of a small group into the bigger group interest, and it's really not easy, no. And that's why it's so interesting to talk about it in this time. And it's interesting also to understand where did the DAO come from, no? Where this concept came from. And the way the DAO was born, like this concept, was some years ago, when basically it was created a smart contract on Ethereum that allowed on-chain governance. So basically, the first DAO that has ever been created was on Ethereum, and in this smart contract. And basically, everybody was amazed. It was like, wow, incredible! Like everybody wanted to be in, no? And basically, in this DAO, in the smart contract, there is huge more money than they expected when they did the fundraising of the DAO. Like way more, like 10 times more than they expected. And there was a problem, and the problem was that there was a bug, and an hacker found out this vulnerability, which basically allowed him to withdraw repeatedly money from the DAO, and so he was basically emptying all the smart contract of the DAO that had all this huge amount of money, and he was hacking it, and he succeeded in get 30% of the money in the contract. Because at the end, like, as we see, when you have money in the DAO, you cannot simply, okay, let's take it back. you saw like there needs to be votation, and also the DAO needs to allow you to do it. Is a smart contract. Like nobody has control over it. It's decentralized. The code is low. Is in the smart contract. So like this hacker found this vulnerability, and while he could withdraw all the money in the DAO, like nobody else could withdraw it because they didn't know the vulnerability, and the DAO wouldn't allow you to withdraw money like this. So as you can imagine, people were kind of stressed in that moment. And after fixing the bug, so they basically fixed it, and the hacker stopped, withdrawing money, and so you just got 30% more or less of the funds of the DAO, which still were some back then some millions euros. And most of the Ethereum community after this agreed to make a chain reorganization. You remember when we saw chain reorganization, when you kind of go back in time in the blocks and then you create new blocks. Well, most of the community agreed to reorganize the chain and create a reality in which the hacker never attacked the DAO, and the DAO never happened. No, so they kind of agreed to go back in time and at the end kind of get the money back, no, from the hacker and give it to the people. Like instead of letting the DAO happen and people put money there and the hacker steal money, well, the DAO never happened. No, this was a chain reorganization. Of course, like it kind of goes against all this philosophy that we have been talking about for months now. No, the code is low. What happens in the blockchain is immutable, and blah blah blah. And so as you can imagine, like it was not easy decision, most probably, no, for the bigger part of the community to just roll the chain back to this version of reality. And there was a small part of the community which was kind of more the purist, no, of the blockchain, that say, okay, you know what, no, because if we roll back, even okay, somebody hacked it, okay, people lose money, okay, but if we go back in time and if we organize the chain just because of this, then this could always happen, and what could prevent somebody to censor the blockchain, no, if we begin to do things like this. So I mean, they had their point, no, in a way, and still was a small community, still is compared to Ethereum, and is in Ethereum where the magic is happening. But still, this split created the Ethereum Classic, no, where the hacker actually has still the money, no, that he stole in Ethereum Classic. He simply doesn't have it in Ethereum. So in the Ethereum Classic network, the hacker owns that 30% of funds that he stole from the DAO. Because in the Ethereum Classic network, the chain was not reorganized by the community. While in Ethereum, the chain was reorganized and the money was going back to people. So like after the split, no, users at the end have had all the Ethereum that they had previously, and the 70% of Ethereum Classic, because this Ethereum Classic was created out of nowhere at the end. Every time there is a split in an hard fork, then money gets created basically out of nowhere. So basically when the split happened, like if I have I don't know, I have 3 Ethereum today, let's say, and then I put 2 Ethereum in the DAO, no, and then the things like get sucked and whatever, like instead of losing the money that I have in the DAO, no, like in Ethereum I have all my Ethereum, but also I have almost all the Ethereum Classic, no, like I have all the same amount of Ethereum, but without the hackers money that he stole, no. So like it's interesting at the end, no, all this kind of thing. And after this, a lot more attention has been put into smart contracts and no, security, like people, they say, whoa, this is dangerous, no. And so then but it also created a lot of interest in the concept of DAO, like, wow, you can really do cool things, no, with a DAO. And there is another thing, like now we saw the story, no, where the DAO come from, the concept of it, and we saw also some example, no, we saw the MOLOK DAO, we saw DAO stack, and still there is some interesting things that we could say that comes from a guy that is Ralph Merkle, and this name should you should be familiar with it, because we talked about Merkle trees for quite a few times now. So basically, it's the guy who invented the Merkle tree. So all this structure of data that we saw, and he wrote a paper that is very interesting, that is called DAO Democracy, in which basically he explains how the combination between prediction markets and artificial intelligence will most probably replace the voting system as we currently have it in our democracy. And why this? Well, I tell you, it's not gonna be easy to get it the first time. Like, most probably you're gonna need to read this again and get a think around it, and it's really a difficult concept to digest intellectually, and it's a difficult concept to accept. So like, it's really not easy to get this through. But imagine like this, like, instead of having a democracy like we have now, no, where you have the right to vote, no, the right to decide something, let's imagine a new way, you know, of organizing society in which you have just the right of saying if you are happy about something or not. Why this? Well, because if it's like this, then we could allow a prediction market to spot inefficiency. So people could bet, for example, if a president is good or not for a country. And this is the same concept that we saw in solidified.io, like this concept of, you know, spotting market inefficiency, you know, when you bet that a code is bugged or not, and that we could apply if when people spot maybe some political decision that could be good or bad for citizens. Like, people could bet, okay, you know what, I think this is really bad for citizens. And if after the decision is done, the citizen are happy, then like at the end you lose money if you bet against something. Like, let's say, okay, you know what, I think that if this president win, then the people are not gonna be happy at all about the way the water is managed. Well, if you're right and people are not happy, then you gain money, but showing that like that president is not good for the country, or the other way around is easier to understand. Like, if you think that somebody will be really good in managing water resources of your country, and then after he manages it, all people are happier, then you gain money, and you are rewarded for the fact that you spotted that somebody would manage resources better than somebody else. Or the other way around, maybe you spotted that somebody will do a very crappy job in managing a country. Well, you could be rewarded if you guess that this person is gonna do a bad job or not. So, like, if the gamblers guess good, they are rewarded with more money, no? And if they are wrong, they lose their bet and money. So, no, is like this, where you can bet that a president, for example, will manage better or worse the resource, no? And when he does it, then you're gonna see what exactly happens, and in that moment you are rewarded. And this still, it's a prediction market. So, like, the thing is that it auto adjusts itself in order not to have the president bad to run the country. But why? Because if you think that somebody is gonna do a good job while he is not, then you're gonna lose money. So in reality, who is gonna go to rule the country through the filter of the prediction market is already filtered out to be a good guy, somebody, or a good proposal, no, a proposal that makes the job, because at the end it allows a lot of participants to bet and to, according to the information they have and they can gain money, understanding if for example, if a populist party has more power or not is gonna affect the country in a bad way. And if he knows, okay, I'm sure these guys are gonna make just damage to the country, then you are rewarded for it if you're right. So just the fact that people say something and bet on it, it creates already this mechanism in which you already know what's gonna happen. It's like the code. Like if in the example of before, everybody bets that the code is very bad, then maybe you don't need to wait somebody to discover a bug to say that the code is bugged. You know what I mean? So it's tricky, but it's very interesting because it literally rewards people for their knowledge, no? And so it kind of this mechanism kind of incentivizes people to spot how the resources of societies can be used better, and they can be rewarded for it. Hey, I think this is a waste of money. I think this is renewable energy is the thing, and not oil. And if they're right, well, they are rewarded for it, no? And society grows. It's not easy at all to digest this and to understand it at first glance. So like, don't feel like, oh, I didn't understand anything. It's really not easy concept, and we are talking about a level on abstraction that is quite far, because we are talking about societies built on top of decentralized money, and societies that work with prediction market and optimize themselves with artificial intelligence. Like, so don't expect to get 100% out of it now, but just is good to have this understanding that this could be a part of the future in which we may get into. And it can be scary, in a way, but there are things also that like are not working at the end in democracy in the way we know it. And it's not that is bad, because still is better than a lot of other systems, no? Like democracy is good, no, compared to a lot of things that are out there, but still maybe is not the best thing, no? And this paper of Ralph Merkle, the democracy, is very interesting to read if you want to open your mind, because it also shows what are the limits of our democracies, no? And we are gonna go fast here to understand, like, what are the problems. So there are some problems in democracy, like not just one. So the first problem is voters have very little incentive to vote at all. Like, they are not incentivized to vote. They are not paid to vote or whatever. And in a typical election, like, the probability is very high that your vote is really not gonna affect anything. Like, I mean, when did it happen that your vote was the thing that changed the parliament or the government? Like, it's extremely difficult. So the very high probability is that your singular vote has literally no impact on the outcome of the elections. But still, you would have spent time voting, you would have need to went to the voting machine. You, like, at the end, like, the way Ralph Merkel argues is, like, economical rational voters should not vote, because they know that the outcome of their vote is zero, no? And but they spend time to do it. So why should I vote if my vote doesn't count anything, no? And a second point, which is even more interesting, is the voter would need to spend significant amount of time and effort analyzing all the various candidates and proposition to determine which, if any, offered any benefit to the voter's perspective. It's like, okay, Who do I need to vote for? Let me get into it. Let me inform about his background. Let me inform about what he's saying. Let me inform if the information he says is correct, no? And so the problem is it's a lot of time. It's really a lot of time, and unfortunately, a lot of people not only don't have this time, but maybe they don't want to do it. Like they are just pressured by society, and people around you that everybody needs to vote because, of course, like a lot of people died to defend the word of everybody, So why should you waste it and put it in the trash? The thing is, even if democracy is way better than every dictatorship, still, um, you are like people who are not motivated to vote and are kind of forced by social pressure to vote. Like, uh, if they are marginally motivated, then most probably their strategy is gonna be just to vote because they have to do it, but they spend maybe little or no time actually determining to who they vote to. So maybe they just vote on like sentences and yes, our country first, or all this populism, which is actually a big problem that we have now, no? Because a lot of populist parties are growing, and because these people don't inform themselves, they are very emotional, and you cannot ask them to spend huge amount of time to check the information that every politician say, and to spend this time and to simply waste it for them because they're not gonna have an impact. So people at the end vote in a superficial way, and they don't analyze things. And voting with this superficiality allows for populistic party to raise and go to power, no? So this kind of behavior, no, superficial and first impression based behavior, it results in decision that is very suboptimal, no, according to Ralph Merkel. But it makes sense, and the cost to determine like what is the best way in which you can use your vote is extremely high, because you need to get yourself huge amount of information. And even assuming that the voter has correct amount of information, like still you need to do a lot of research. So like it's very high cost, and the outcome that you have is extremely little. So like economically rational voters should not vote, no? According to Merkel, like if somebody is rational economically, then it doesn't make any sense to vote. There is a third element, and the third element is that like until now we just talked about that politician, like information and these kind of things, but like that you need to inform yourself to understand if a vote is that you use is good or not for society, whatever. But all this it assumes that the information you are provided is correct. Then if you add all the substantial influenciation that like the politician makes on voters, no, and campaigns on misinformation, fake news, and that are aimed to let people vote for a person or another, then it's hard, because then the voter like can be prey of this misinformation and vote against its own interests, which is also happens a lot. And if the voter is deceived by one of these misinformation campaigns, then voting could easily have a small negative impact, no? Even if it doesn't change anything so big as we say, still it could make a small negative impact expected, and but this accumulated it produce like really poor results, no, in the society. So unless the voter is prepared to spend even more time analyzing the publicly information available, their vote is unlikely to produce the desired result, just because of this misinformation and lack of data and whatever. And fourth, like candidates, sometimes they promise you something, and then when are elected, they do something else. So like, and people vote in anticipation on, and they give it power, and then they maybe are disappointed because they don't do what they have been elected for, politicians. So like also if somebody like the information that you get is true, and also if the thing is that gets promised is actually good for society, all these kind of things, then still, not only voting is not worth the time to spend of it, not only is debatable that you can no, get yourself through this misinformation and get real information, also it's unlikely that you get what you voted for, because not only it's unlikely that you will get what you voted for, but at the end, like you don't even get what the majority voted for, because the politician that comes then say, okay, I'm here, no, okay, I promise you this, another time. And fifth, and this is the last thing, is this is very anthropological, I would say. Like, voting is an activity in which everybody participates equally, but at the same time, like, it's well known that half of the population is below average, no, in judgment at least, and not everybody has the possibility to like get a good education, to rationalize things good. Like, you're asking everybody to vote, but a lot of people, like half of the population is below average in the way they make decisions. So at maximum we can expect a mediocre result. This is the best thing we can aim at in democracy, just because even if everybody has the right information, even like still people are like, most of them they vote for something which they maybe they shouldn't, because they don't have the knowledge to do it. So voting can only be justified by arguing that alternatives are worse than mediocre. Oh, so dictatorship is even worse than mediocre. At least having a mediocre democracy is way better than dictatorship, no? But still, it's interesting to discuss this because, like, from a societal perspective, we are expending substantial resources to ensure that unmotivated, unqualified, misinformed voters make societal critical decisions. So, like, it's interesting, no? Like, for me, honestly, when I read this paper years ago, like, it was mind blowing for me, and I read it twice, and I suggest you to read it if you're interested in this kind of things. And you don't need necessarily to agree on what is written on the paper, and you don't need to necessarily to understand everything that is written on the paper. It, just for you to know that, like, it's an interesting way to look at it, and especially from a guy that laid the foundation of decentralized technology, no? So, regardless of political opinions and how different protocol work, like, there is no doubt that at the end DAOs, no, they can shape the future of society, regardless on how they are applied, on to which extent, or how they work and whatever. And because it's just a more tool to create collaboration between human beings, and then this is just the beginning, and is probably gonna take a huge amount of years to see some little change in our society, like maybe 30, 40, 50 years, like nobody knows. And but still, like, now you can see a lot of people building the skeletons of it, and DAOs are an incredible tool to create decentralized governance and also improve, no, the future of our society. So it's, for me, it's one of the most interesting things that we can do right now, like build, like after we say, okay, we build decentralized money, now let's build decentralized societies.